are you not sure what baby clothes you'll need for the first year of your little one's life? From sizing confusion to seasonal changes, it can be overwhelming for new parents. In this video, we'll help you build a practical, comfortable, and budget friendly baby wardrobe. Hey y'all, my name is Nikki, and this is the Aziz Experience. Please like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell below. So, I'm always going to start off with use what you have. Start with any pre loved clothes you receive from maybe family, friends, older siblings, nonprofits, like a food pantry or something. Start with what you have. Then you're going to identify what types of clothing the baby will need at specific time periods based on when the baby is expected to be born. So think about it in seasonally, right? So for instance, our son was due in September and I ended up having him in September. So he was a fall baby. I based this time period on what type of clothing I should get. So for the first 6 to 8 months of his life, we knew he'd need warm clothing, right? Because it would be fall and winter. So for sizes newborn, essentially to 8 months, he would need warm clothing. So we selected items based off of that notion and whatever we didn't receive for free. Then for ages 8 to 12 months, it would be spring, summer. So I put those on the registry and purchased whatever was left. If you receive free clothing that doesn't fit the season and age of your baby, if you are in if you're in the cold weather months, you can still use spring summer clothing by adding layers to keep the baby warm. So for instance, maybe it's a short sleeve onesie that you receive, right? And it's the right size, but it's going to be when it's colder. You can always put a sweater over them and still use it. This way you can reduce the cost and things that you may need. Always try to keep it simple. Keep in mind, you don't need a ton of clothes for babies. Granted, babies have potty accidents or food spills, so you'll want to have some type of buffer so you can change the baby into cleaner clothes throughout the day. So you want just enough, but nothing overwhelming. We purchased enough clothes for 2 seasons that fit into one drawer of his dresser. So it's about approximately 8 inches by 28 inches, about the standard size of a dresser drawer. Then when it was time to rotate, we fit all his clothes in the same drawer for the spring and summer months. Keep in mind we cloth diapered, so there was a separate drawer just for those items. I wash his clothes 2 times a week because of the cloth diapers, so I'm naturally going to wash his clothes in general twice a week as well. And we only air dry because we don't have enough space in our pantry right now for a clothes dryer. So imagine twice a week I'm washing clothes and twice a week I'm drying clothes. It's a lot. And that's not even including our clothes, my partner and I. However, the upside is the clothing lasts longer because we don't use a dryer, which can impact the integrity of the clothing in the long run. And quite frankly, a lot of clothes have micro a lot of clothes have microplastics, and so the dryer, if anything, exacerbates that issue, and really allows it to circulate amongst other clothing. So the air drying is actually ideal, even though it does make things much harder. I'll be the first to admit. So composition of the clothing. So you want to identify any special considerations that are important to you. So for instance, are you only a natural fiber type of family? We noticed that our son became fussy when we put anything on him that wasn't cotton. Maybe you want to stay away from any clothing with buttons because it can be a choking hazard. Figure out what exactly do you want the clothing to be made of, and how do you want it to be formed. So maybe it's just onesies you want to deal with and you don't want to deal with any buttons because that's a headache, and it can be a headache to deal with buttons, and you only want to deal with zippers, right? Or you say, I only want to deal with the onesies, like the long leg, long arm onesies, because it's the cold weather months, the first few months of their life, and I just want to deal with that. And honestly, I will that's not a bad plan, because if I could keep him in onesies every single day, every single night, that's what I would have done as a fall baby. Anything else is just it's not necessary. He had like one or two like going out outfits. Other than that, we weren't really going out, so it didn't even matter. You also, this may be something that's particularly important to you, but you may want to also consider color palette. If this is important to you, identify what color scheme you'd like to stick with for the baby. I personally love a good color scheme, and honestly, it helps you pinpoint items much easier because if it doesn't fit your preferences, you move on to the next rather than being indecisive about, oh, do I want to go with this or do I want to go with that? When there's limited options based off of the color palette, it makes it much easier. So for us, we decided to go with a neutral color scheme. So browns, beiges, creams, and the occasional blues. We also decided to go with this color palette so we could reuse the clothing in case we have more children. We picked timeless colors and styles that would work regardless of whether it's, now or a few years from now. And then lastly, I'd recommend just adapting. Nature will dictate a lot. So your baby could be born large or small, and the rate at which they grow could vary. So you may have to be flexible in what you put on the baby and for how long. So perhaps the baby is born larger than expected. Perhaps the quote unquote newborn size isn't fitting them properly. Or maybe the rate at which they grow is maybe slower than you expected. So you find clothing lasts longer on the baby than you originally anticipated, which is not necessarily a bad thing. Our son was born long and relatively lean for a baby, and he's continued to grow that way. So his clothes that he wears tend to be for older children because of his length. And keep in mind, we use cloth diapers, and that adds additional material used up with the sizing. So that's also something to keep in mind. It takes up more space. We find that he tends to fit clothing better when it's like 3 to 4 months older than his actual age. So between his height and the cloth diapering, he needs a much older size. So right now he's 8 months old and he fits 12 to 18 month sizes comfortably. So those are things to keep in mind. Also keep in mind, like adult clothing, baby brands have different sizing proportions. So if you find a brand you like, use any customer service feedback you read online or any advice from people you know personally or online to decipher how clothing is cut by brand. So like for us, we have found Burt's Bees. The clothing was made rather large, which was a great thing for us because it lasted longer and the material was nice. So we found that we've kept those the longest. But some other brands we found that when we got it, it was kind of small. But again, keep in mind our son was long and that we had the cloth diapers. So all things to consider. I hope you found this video helpful. That first year can be a doozy. So anything you can do to help plan things out and, adapt as needed will be helpful. I appreciate you guys stopping by. This is Nikki, and this is the Aziza Experience. Bye, loves.